Welcome back to the Prime Life Project channel. I'm your host, Daniel James, and if you are new here, welcome. Today, I'm answering some questions. I used to do this a lot on my Instagram. However, I've not done it for a long time. So I put something on my Instagram where people could ask me anonymous questions and I would answer them. And we've got some really, really good ones to go over today. If you'd like to ask me a question, on YouTube, go into the comments section and drop your question in the comments box. If you're listening to this on audio, click the link in the description and I'll answer the questions over coming episodes. Q&As are fantastic. I love it. It really allows me to connect with you guys and help you with whatever it is that you're struggling with. So let's dive into this one today. So the first question we've got here is, I'm feeling overall happy, but a little unfulfilled in my life in general currently. What do I need to do to connect the two things? I think a lot of people can relate to this. This question. For me, there's a difference between being happy and fulfilled. And one thing we need to understand about happiness, first of all, is that happiness comes and goes. You're not meant to be happy all the time. If you're happy all the time, then by default, you're not actually happy. You are normal. The goal should be to become content. So content is almost what we're mentioning here about fulfilled. You feel a very good base sense of okayness and wellness and alignment and purpose. That for me is what contentment is. Whereas if we're just searching for happiness, we're kind of always going to be kicking it into the future because what makes us happy one day won't make us happy another day. But the important thing to realize when it comes to happiness is an emotion and we create our emotions. So happiness is actually an internal job. Now, that's not to say that having a nice car, buying new things doesn't make you happy. It does, but it's short-lived. And I also don't necessarily think that buying those things is happiness. It's almost pleasure. You get short-term pleasure from it. Not necessarily happiness, but short-term pleasure. Maybe a little bit of happiness in there, but it's not long-term. To actually seek long-term happiness, that requires us looking within. And that then comes to the point of this question here about the unfulfillment. Because if we don't know ourselves, how can we ever then live a fulfilling life? So to answer this question, sort of link the two together, I believe to connect them, we've got to go inwards and start to figure out who we really are. Because the problem is a lot of us don't know who we are. And I struggled with this for years, constantly wearing a mask, going around, trying to fit in, essentially. And what happens is you show up to work wearing a mask. You then go home with your partner, you have to wear another mask. Maybe put another mask around your kids. Maybe another mask around your parents. You then go see your friends. And depending on what group of friends you're with, you then wear yet another mask. So we constantly go around wearing these masks, not really knowing who we are at our core, because we're trying to impress other people. So then this can then lead to us feeling unfulfilled, because we don't know what actually fills us up. So unfulfilled. We're not filled. But if we don't know who we are at our core, how are we going to know what fills us up? So to answer this question, I think I wrote some notes here. A question to ask yourself initially, whoever asked this question, which again I think a lot of people can relate to, is who do you want to become in the next 5 to 10 years? And really sit down. This is something I get my clients to do on the Ascend coaching program, is sit down and ask yourself, in 5 to 10 years, what do you want your life to look like? But then more importantly, who do you want to become in that future life that you're looking at? Because who you want to become is more important than what you want to have. So who do you want to become? And then look at where you're at right now and that version of you that you want to become and figure out what's missing. Because when you look at a future version of you and you say then, you're like, do you know what? Yeah, like I've got family, I'm around my family. So then you know, right, well, family's really important to me. Fantastic. You've got a really nice house. You've got financial freedoms. There's all these things you're sort of crazy. Wow, okay. That's that future version of me that I want. You're then starting to realize some of your needs. So if you're watching this on video, you'll see that I put on the screen here a list of needs. So I'd encourage you, the listener, to look through a list of needs. Now, there's loads of lists of needs that you can get out there. This is just one that I use in my Ascend coaching clients. And again, feel free to screenshot it. There's a list here of, what must be 50 needs. Some examples of it are exercise, rest and sleep, freedom, autonomy, purpose, play, joy, creativity, empathy, understanding, respect, community, harmony, peace, skill, learning, challenge, growth. So if, like this person was saying in the question, they're feeling a bit unfulfilled, Maybe it's because you're not getting some of your core needs met. Now, your needs can be different to my needs. So it's important to ask yourself, what needs of yours are not being met? Because we're not going to feel fulfilled if our needs are not being met. Now, there's some core basic needs, which we're kind of going to link into from the later questions, which is a great question as well. But if, for example, one of your needs is, autonomy, but you've got zero autonomy in your life, you're always being told what to do, you can't make decisions for yourself, like people don't allow you to make decisions, that's going to be a big thing for you. You're not going to feel fulfilled. Maybe you've got another one here where learning is a big thing for you. Yet you haven't learned anything new for the last 2 years, 3 years. You're not reading books. You're not doing any sort of studying. You're not consuming podcasts. Because bear in mind, the person asked this question doesn't necessarily listen to the podcast. I said, ask me a question. But this is then when you realize, yeah, do you know what? Learning is really important to me and I haven't done any learning. Okay, there we go. Now you know potentially why you're feeling unfulfilled. We all have specific needs. And if they're not met, it's going to cause us to feel uneasy. It's going to lead to us feeling unfulfilled. So I would look through this. And what I do is just circle them. Some of these will absolutely jump out to you. You'll look through this list. And some will be like, yeah, that's important. Some will literally jump off the screen at you. They're the ones you want to focus on. And then once you've got that, ask yourself the question, what can I do to get these needs met? So don't answer the question. In summary again, happiness is an internal thing. Happiness is an internal thing. We create our own happiness. We shouldn't aim to be happy all the time. That's called toxic positivity, and it's not a real thing. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling sad, if something bad's happened, yes, you want to move through that and take any lessons, and that incident happen for you, not to you. But as I always say, you want life to happen for you, not to you. But in order for it to happen for you, it first has to happen to you. So understand that. But don't try and turn everything into a positive, because sometimes it's not. So happiness will ebb and flow. That's what it's meant to do. The goal is to get contentment, and you get that through fulfillment. And you get fulfillment by looking at the needs of yours that are important, and ask yourself which one of these are not being met. Because it could be even just purpose. You have no idea what your purpose is. And people, it's a buzzword. I'll potentially do a whole episode on purpose. That's a massive buzzword that people struggle with. So that was a fantastic question. Thank you very much for that. Next question. How do you stay positive and determined when you are feeling depressed? Not just a low mood one day, but actually depressed, and how do you pull yourself out of it? Very, very loaded question here. And the answer, which most people won't want to hear, is you don't. If you are feeling depressed, you're not going to feel positive. The goal when you're feeling depressed isn't to not feel depressed. The goal is to figure out what is causing that depression. So if I come to the whiteboard over here, so if there's like levels of emotion, so imagine I've got like a chart there, and at the bottom is feeling depressed, which again is not a great feeling. So many people try and go from rock bottom. Let's use a Premier League football example. Let's say you're bottom of the league. If you're feeling depressed and you're trying to get yourself to feeling, make sure I use the correct word here, to feel positive, that's like going from relegation and trying to get into Champions League. What you need to do is get yourself out of the relegation zone. So in this example here, when you're feeling depressed, the goal is just to slightly get yourself feeling better, just a little bit better, just slightly outside the relegation zone. It's to stabilize the ship. The goal isn't to be feeling positive, because if you're feeling depressed, there's a reason why you're feeling depressed. Your emotions are trying to tell you something. So what you want to be doing is not trying to stay positive. You want to be trying to get out of that depressive headspace that you're in by asking, what's caused this? Now, yes, there's chemical imbalances, and I fully understand that. And if you're really feeling that bad, reach out. There's helplines. There's loads of helplines out there. Reach out. The Samaritans is a great place to start. Reach out, seek for help. But most of the time, it's not a chemical imbalance. Most of the time, we are doing it to ourselves. Because if we think on a spectrum, and so again, for those of you that are listening to this on audio, I've just drawn a line. And at one end, you've got the past. At the other end, you've got the future. And in the middle, we've got the now. Normally, when we're feeling depressed, it's because we're stuck in the past. We're not having thoughts. Our thoughts are having us. And we're going back into the past, reliving past events, past mistakes that we've made. We're sat in the pain, which is then causing us to feel depressed. As I've mentioned, this is not if we've got a chemical imbalance. We're not talking about that. Most of the time, we're struggling because we're not controlling our thoughts. Our thoughts are controlling us. You have complete control over your thoughts. You just don't realize that you have that choice. And it's just like a muscle. If you've not taken control of your thoughts for years, it's going to be rusty. If you don't believe me, close your eyes. If you're able to, if you're driving, please do not close your eyes, but close your eyes. And if you've heard me talk at all, you'll have heard me do this exercise many times. So close your eyes. Think of a can of Coke. Think of a can of Coke. Now, if it's a red can of Coke, make it silver. If you thought of a silver can of Coke, make it red. Perfect. Now, keep your eyes closed. Get rid of the can of Coke. Think of a unicorn. Think of a unicorn. I know this sounds crazy, but just trust me. Think of a unicorn. Once you've got that, perfect. Have a look at what colour its mane is. Can you change the colour of its mane? Perfect. And then make that same unicorn ride a rainbow. Make the same unicorn ride a rainbow. Perfect. Keep your eyes closed still. Final one. Think of a happy moment, place, or time in your life. A moment, place, or time in your life. Really sit there and hold that image in your mind. Make the image as big as you possibly can. Look around. What can you see? What would you be able to smell, taste, touch? Really focus on the emotion that you're feeling and really amplify that. You'll feel it somewhere in your body. Maybe it's your arm, your chest, your head. Try and get that feeling that you're feeling and get it across your entire body. And then open your eyes. Congratulations, you've just taken complete control of your thoughts. And then someone once said to me, yeah, but you told us what to do. Yes, I have told you. I've given you things to think about, but I've not taken control of your thoughts. No one can control your thinking but you. So if I've just influenced what you think about, you can influence what you're thinking about. The problem is that 99% of people walking this planet have got no idea they can do that. So when they have this thought, they don't even challenge the thought. If you're sat there in this negative, depressive headspace, start to challenge the thought. Start to challenge that depressive thought. What is this thought telling me? Is there any truth to it? What can I learn from it? And you'll see that most of the time, this depressive thought is stories. It's stories that we've kind of made up and there's no real essence to it. There's no real truth to it. We've catastrophized things and we've got stuck in a negative thought pattern. So to answer the question again here, how do you stay positive and determined when you're feeling depressed? You don't. You don't. You pull yourself out of it by leaning into it and finding out, why am I feeling this way? Start to get curious. But most importantly, realize that you have the power to get yourself out of this situation. But you don't just get yourself out of feeling depressed. That's not how it works. You want to just slowly work through it. Realize that you're feeling depressed for a reason. We feel emotions for a reason. It's our body telling us something's off. But if you're feeling that low, if you're feeling that bad, please reach out for help. There's helplines out there, local doctors, practitioners, whatever you need to do, please reach out for help if you're really struggling on that much of a level. Great question though, fantastic question, thank you. Next one, how do you get past limiting beliefs when you can't find a way forward? You may have a combination of issues, financial, health, family, discouragement. How do you move forward when you're being held back? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, please smash that thumbs up button. It helps with YouTube algorithm to get the video out there to help more people that may need to hear this message. If you don't want to miss any future episodes, hit that subscription button. And now back to the episode. Once again, another fantastic question, but let's really break this down because I felt there's a few questions within this question. So how do you get past limiting beliefs when you can't find a way forward? Just because we've got limiting beliefs doesn't necessarily mean they're the reasons why we can't find a way forward. So again, if we're struggling, if we're feeling low, if we're feeling down, it can be hard to find a way forward. That's not necessarily due to limiting beliefs. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I'll put the link in the thing above here. If you're listening on audio, I'll also put this link to the video in the description. The last video that came out was, the last Thursday Thought, was about unpicking these beliefs. So I'll link it there for you. Do the activity or activities that I mentioned in there, and that will help you identify these limiting beliefs. Because you don't get past limiting beliefs until you identify what those limiting beliefs are. So that exercise will teach you what your limiting beliefs are, what your paradigms are. And then it tells you what you can do about it. So that's the first part of this question. The second part here is, you may have a combination of issues, financial, health, family, discouragement. How do you move forward when you're being held back? So the first thing is, no one can hold you back apart from yourself. These things only hold you back if they let them. The universe is testing you, and the universe will never give you things, tests that you can't overcome. And maybe the universe is sending you the same lesson over and over and over again. So then asking yourself, right, maybe you've got financial issues. Okay, what can you do about the financial issues? Because there's always something you can do. There's always a choice. What can you do about the financial issues? And if the answer is nothing, then I don't believe you, for a start. There's always things you can do. And again, I'm not just bypassing this, because I have had lots of financial issues in my life. Lots. Got myself into lots and lots of debt. One of the best days of my life was cut my credit card up. One of the best days of my life. Once I paid it off, cut it up. So I understand the implications here of having financial difficulty. I understand that. But what can you do to change that? Because there's always something you can do. Can you get a second part-time job? Can you lower your expenses? If you've got a partner, can they get a second job? If you've got a spare room in the house, can you rent it out for an Airbnb? There's always things that we can do. Can you sell things online? Do you have loads of junk that maybe other people want? Facebook Marketplace. There's always things that we can do. But normally, financial issues come from a lack of financial education. I don't mean that to offend anybody, but that was me to a T. We're not taught financial literacy. And there are some fantastic channels out there, YouTube channels, there's books. I prefer YouTube channels because they're more up to date, where people can teach you basic financial literacy. Because I had no idea. I didn't know about interest rates. I had no idea about interest rates. Just didn't understand it. Interest rates, inflation, I didn't know any of these things. So obviously, I was at the mercy of whoever was giving this information, like the credit card companies. Well, giving them £1,000? Oh, brilliant, cool, I'll spend that straight away. Not realising APR or any of this stuff. I just didn't understand. I didn't understand the importance of saving, investing. I just didn't get it. Budgeting. So for me here, if you look at the issues, what can we do about the financial? Again, health, what can we do about it? There's always things we can do. Maybe you're bedbound and you can't move. There's always things you can do. Even just basic arm weights. Health conditions, again, what's your diet like? Are you smoking? Are you drinking? Are you getting any sort of fresh air? Family discouragement. And bear in mind, I'm answering this without any context. So I don't know this person. These are completely anonymous questions. I've got no context, so I'm just going off what I've got here. Again, family discouragement. If it's your partner that's constantly discouraging you, is that the kind of partner that you want to be with? I'm not for a single second suggesting that you break up, but I can't imagine anything worse than being with an unsupportive partner. Is that what you believe you're worth? Or maybe you're not communicating with your partner. So you're saying here, the family discouragement, are you actually communicating yourself effectively with your family? Or are you just keeping it quiet, expecting your family to know what you want and then getting mad at them when they're discouraging you, even though they don't realise they're discouraging you because you've not stood up for yourself and set any boundaries and communicated it? So it's very easy to play the blame game here, because this here is playing the blame game. Like, I can't find a way forward because of external things, external finances, health, family, discouragement. You've still got your mind. There's still things you can do. And I don't mean to make this a real simplistic whitewash thing, because genuinely, I understand that this could be genuine issues for people. I've been there for a lot of these things. Family discouragement, absolutely. Finances, absolutely. But there's always something that we can do. There's always something. So how do we move forward when being held back? If you're being held back, cut off the things that are holding you back. And then how do you move forward one step at a time? I'll talk about a very, very simple formula. Win the day. So again, I'll just scribble this out. If you win the day, you win the week. If you win the week, oh, my pen's died here, fantastic, week. If you win the week, you win the month. And if you win the month, you win the year. That's how it works. So if you want to change your life, it happens a day at a time. And if you're struggling to win the day, just win the next hour. What can you do to move your life forward in the next hour or the next 5 minutes? Everything comes down to choice. And this goes back to an earlier question we spoke about. What kind of life do you want to have? And what kind of person do you need to be to do that? And at every moment in your life, you're going to have a choice. And that choice is either going to lead you closer or further away from that person that you want to become and that life that you want to lead. But it's understanding when you set an intention of changing your life, and I want you to hear this, whoever asks this question, and anyone this may relate to, when you set an intention, disruption always follows intention. What do I mean by that? When you set an intention to change your life or become a different person, it will cause chaos temporarily, because that's how it works. When you're disrupting the status quo, when you're stepping out your comfort zone, there will be disruption. It will be difficult. And that's the universe's way of saying to you, do you really want this life? And do you really want to become this person that you say that you do? So let's take it back to one of the podcast guests that we had. And he spoke about, he wanted to be an actor his entire life. He'd been in some minor things, and then made the decision he wanted to stop acting and go in to spend more time with his family. He set that intention, that's what I want to do. I want to focus on personal training. I want to spend more time with my family. And this moment he set that intention and did that, the next day, the very next day, he got a call from his agent saying, you don't have to come and do a casting for this. You've been given a main role in this TV show, blah, 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 blah. and he turned it down. That's the disruption. And why did he turn it down? He turned it down because it didn't align with the person he said he wanted to be. And the universe was simply asking him, and he said this himself. He said, he used the word God. He said, I feel like God was testing me and asking me, do you really want this thing that you've just said that you want? And he said, yes, I do. So he turned it down, even though that had been his dream for years beforehand. So again, fantastic question. I hope it's answered the question because it really, really was a great question. Final question. So this actually relates to a video that I put out on Instagram earlier on today. So I can't actually bring the video up on the channel, but what I will do is I will have a look and I will just read the caption that I put to this because I can't remember specifically what I said, but this question relates very nicely to it. So I put out earlier on, it said, you already know all the answers that you're searching for. The problem is we search for answers externally, thinking people and things will give us what we are searching for. Ultimately, all we want is happiness. We collect things and want more to gain happiness. But long-term happiness is an internal thing, giving you ultimate power to gain the thing you're searching for. And within that, I mentioned that people think that they want more money. And when you really break it down, people want more money to buy a nice house, buy a nice car, blah, 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 blah. And ultimately it comes down to, if you keep asking, why do you want that? And then what will that give you? Why do you want that? What will that give you? It all comes down to happiness. That's normally why people do this. So this is what this question relates to. And I'm going to break it down because this is a great question. You say wanting more money won't bring happiness. That happiness comes from within. But you can't be happy if you can't afford to live. We have needs that make us happy. When meeting those needs, is it possible? When meeting those needs when meeting those needs is impossible, how do we be happy? If a need is to work, but limitations stop you, how can you be happy? So essentially, what I got from this question is, again, for those of you that are new to the podcast, I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I do struggle to read. So essentially what I'm getting from this question here is, how do you, basically, it's impossible to be happy when we need money because basically we need to basically live. And I completely agree. So what I've got here is, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So again, listening on audio, it's a pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, we have the bottom two sections. And the very bottom one says, physiological needs. So that's food, water, warmth, and rest. And then one above that says safety needs, feeling security and safety. And they're the basic needs. Then on top of that, we've got belonging, love, and need. Then above that, esteem. And then above that, self-actualization. So it goes from basic needs, psychological needs, then self-fulfillment. So without your basic needs being met in any way, shape, or form, you are never going to get true happiness without gratitude. What do I mean by that? I've been into the poorest places in South Africa, into the townships, in the poorest places in South Africa. And the people there were so happy. They were happy because they were grateful for what they'd got, not for what they don't have. Now, the caveat to that is we need money to live. Yes, we absolutely do. But we then can't try and get happiness long-term and change our life without having our basic needs met. It's very hard to feel happiness every day when we're struggling with these, not getting our basic needs met: food, water, warmth, rest. So again, we can have some of them met, like people again in Africa. They had the food, they had the water. It may not be as abundant as we have here, but they had basic needs met. So then it allowed them to show basic gratitude. But to answer this question here, like, it's impossible to really have that contentment, that happiness, when we're constantly living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay our bills, struggling to eat. And that makes perfect sense. The goal should be to survive at that point. The goal should be asking ourselves, kind of what I said in the last question, what can we do to influence these things? But we all need money to live. I'm not saying, and I mentioned in that video, money's not bad. The problem is we think that that's going to bring happiness, because what's going to happen is this person, let's say they do get all their needs met and they are feeling safe and secure. They're still not going to be happy because they're going to be wanting more and more and more and more. And this was the point of my video there. But essentially what we need to do is we need to get our basic needs met. We can't do anything. We can't really get to our, again, full potential and really work on self-improvement if we aren't feeling safe and having our basic human needs met. So we need to focus on that first. We're not trying to become the best version of ourselves. We're trying to survive. And when you're in survival mode, that is not a creative state. That is not a state that's going to help you become the best version of you. Just think about it. If you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, that fight or flight, constantly like worrying, stressed, that's not the time to get creative. That is not the time to be thinking about becoming the best version of you. That's the time to survive. So to answer the question here, if your needs to work but limitations stop you, how can you be happy? You be happy for what we do have, gratitude. And asking yourself, what needs stop you from working? Okay, what things can you do to get over that limitation? What things can we do? Because there's people out there, I can guarantee you, in worse situations than you, that are earning money somehow, some way, somehow. If there's a will, there's a way. But it's very easy to blame these things. And it's hard, I get it. But there's got to be some way to get yourself out of this situation. The problem is, if you're in a heightened, stressed state, constantly that fight or flight response, that's not a conducive environment to be thinking of how to get yourself out of the problem. If you're constantly stressed, if you're constantly in a stressed state, that is not the time to get yourself out of a hole, because you can't think clearly. You're thinking from that fight or flight response. You're thinking survival rather than growth. So again, this question isn't necessarily the best worded. So I get that, and I hope I'm getting to the core essence of this. Maybe I'm completely butchering it. However, for me, to answer the question here, happiness comes from within, but you can't be happy if you can't afford to live. You can be grateful. You can be grateful that you actually have a life. And again, if you can't afford to live, is there anything that you can do about that? Is there anything that you can do about that? Rather than blaming external things, situations, what responsibility can you take? And what action can you take to try and get yourself to a position where you can afford to live? Because again, I've been there. I get it. If you've taken any value from today's episode, don't forget to like and share it with a friend. Hopefully we'll do some more of these Q&A episodes, because I've really enjoyed this. We're going for about 26 minutes, which has been awesome. And again, if I get questions in advance, I can put cool little graphics like this to really emphasize the point. But I'd love to know in the comment section as well, any questions that you've got, and also if you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take it easy.